you do have my consent.
Wonderful.
Oh, awesome.
I want to appreciate your patience with me. I'm about an hour late.
Like when it's that, yeah, I understand. Even me, like it was confusing at some point. So, and actually, I ran out of time a little bit, and I was like, so the hour of surplus that I had was perfect. So. I'm back on the regimen.
And you look good.
Ah, you too, man. Wow. I wanted to share some insight that always like so unique to this lifestyle, to this regimen, to what caloric restriction forced me to realize. And sometimes those forced realization are so drastic, are so like now, are so present that I either have to surrender or to resist and like to go explore something else or to go venture in some thinking or some concept or whatever.
And what comes up for you when you think about this insight?
I've noted some. I feel like when you try to preserve energy, you stop doing unnecessary thing, let's say, like keeping tension in the first place, like the pure physical tension, like suddenly my chest is more open, I can breathe more easily. Suddenly my every part of the body with time just settle and relax. And that on its own, it's something.
Yeah, and there's also something about this additional awareness of the nervous system, which I would love to understand more as a scientist, as an explorer, as a contemplator who's in the present moment exploring the fact that he has a consciousness. And in this exploration is the realization that the beginning and the end are the same. That the nervous system is in the end a system. And that's the best definition I have for myself, a system. That means I don't start anywhere. I don't end. My beautiful brother, I am. Do you feel like this
so
is
much
what caloric restriction has taught you?
Oh, so much, so much. Like it's, and I feel that caloric restriction is pushing me to preserve that energy that now organization and structure become more prevalent, more needed, whereas procrastination will take more energy than not acting right now. And that on its own is, wow. It's like when we have too much energy, it's easy to like to follow to, we don't see like the needs for acting right now. We don't see the need for like efficiency within the structure. But when you're trying to maintain your energy, efficiency become important. And in many ways, that's why I can see the world right now and the efficiency ties with technologies and the structure and like, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, this is being a reintroduction to me as well. Since entering a relationship, my attention has been, so usually more output, less input. There are two ways to go about caloric restriction. Either I increase my output of exercise, which is my tendency over these past experiences, or I reduce my input of calories. And those two strategies can be applied differently. But I'm noticing the complexity of life, and something that you're saying here is resonating with me deeply. When you talk about not having the energy, in a sense, you're speaking on, you can feel, oh, maybe I'll give you my example. Oh, I feel anxious. It's somewhere in my body. I don't have the energy to carry this around. This is dragging my whole mechanism, and I need to do something. So maybe we do some deadlifts. Maybe we go some walk. We don't go for the walk necessarily because there is motivation for the walk, but because the walk is the necessity to clear out the channels, and that is felt, the felt expression and experience. So it's to keep the system. So I feel like so many of these principles, I'm realizing now in the moment, you're giving me a beautiful reminder, brother. As an ascetic, that the introduction of these elements bring about the avatar, so to speak, bring about the system, the 5 elements into the single organism, and they sort of bring themselves into alignment in different parts of the day as well. And so since entering a beautiful relationship, I've noticed that I'm trying and doing so successfully at striving to be my utmost ascetic, which can be hard for people to energetically understand. If someone's connected to my energies and I go into the zones that you're familiar with, imagine what that feels like to someone.
As far as I can tell, I never passed the 5 months. And like you telling me that you did the 4 years, I was like not even able to what all like this experience means, because it is so profound. And I feel that every day it's get even better and deeper. And like there's, yeah, for real, I have high admiration for like this dedication. And like I get that, yeah, when you're in it, keeping it like functioning well, it's easy. It's like no man's land. It's the senses are heightened, like life is.
And yet what's fascinating is, for me, and at least, if I can share, this is it okay if I share?
Of course.
It's a system, and there's almost no completion point. because the body continues to increase in energetic efficiency, continues to re-regulate these genes. And those are just the, let's say, the physical components and the neurological components. But there are spiritual associations or esoteric associations to what's happening to this foundation, the earth and water elements in the body. The water element also has structure. We know this water has structure. It's like a crystal. Earth also has structure. It's like a crystal. And yet these structures can be rewired and changed. You know, it's that old example we've all heard. And I'm reminded of it now. It's the example of what's the difference between the coal and the diamond. It's simply the structure and the pressure under which one goes to the other. And there's the whole spectrum in between that. And the diamond itself can continue to become more and more condensed. And what I enjoy about this system is that it depends on each individual to the extent that someone would want to imply that discipline, that measure. And what is discipline? You know, my heart bleeds for discipline. It bleeds for that word, for the meaning, the enriched meaning behind that word. All it means is the practice of free will. It's the rebellious spirit in me that says, no, Mother Nature, I respect you. You are sacred. But if I only listen to you, Mother Nature, though I come from you, though I'm your son, if I only listen to you, well, let me just look around. Look at all the other people who are just listening to Mother Nature, taking down ridiculous amounts of sugar. You see, this is working with nature in a sense. There were, oh, it feels good. But what feels good, what does that have to do with the truth? You see, so I am contemplating this with myself. And I think this is where discernment sort of has that portal. And I think this is why it puts me in a perfect opportunity to teach myself this and inadvertently to sort of resonate this. And I think you might be feeling that with others too, is that sometimes the part about you that's going to be the most misunderstood is the discernment quality and this free will quality. Why? Because it's good to work with nature. It's good. People are right. This is an ancient wisdom. But there's something in the space. There's something in the space that can never be explained. The discernment quality is the ether quality. We just talked about the earth and the water just now, but there's also the ether quality, the space. In a sense, that's a part of the intellect. Part of the intellect is the spaciousness in which the air moves, air, A-I-R. The air moves. The air quality has more to do with the movement of the mind. Is it caught up in any particular pattern? We have the ability to override our patterns. Clearly, I have a chart. And I've read my chart and I've gone through these things enough to realize that they can be surprisingly or annoyingly accurate. Where is my ability to step outside of that? Yes, brother, please.
To me, the subject was contemplating because, like, worth contemplating, because is it surrendering to those traits and incarnating them? Is it to be aware of them and just, for most part, accepting them? It's funny. Like yesterday, I sat and I did something like I was not trying to label like those emotion I was feeling, like, oh, I'm angry or that. I really went to the standpoint, okay, what am I feeling right now? So very the kinetic part of it, like the warmth, the tension in my rib cage or whatever. And so I didn't know, what is that? Like, what is that sensation? And just going through this mindset got me far, like got me past that emotion, got me to a feeling where I was like, at some point, because I'm always like focusing, like, I'm focusing on Vishnu, on Ajna, like at some point I'm like, why am I even focusing? So I stopped like seeing myself as part and seeing just like this whole body breathing in one, as my feet, as my head. And the only thing I could feel was this separation, somehow this tension between me and the outside world. Like I still felt it, Like I knew that if I just sat there and settle and like be like try to go with the same mindset of what it is. Yeah. And it was all about inclusion. Like it's not about refusing this tension or this sound that I was like, it's part of me too. I accept it and I breathe into it.
There are two beautiful things that come to my mind with that share. The first one is the word amen, A-M-E-N. And there's usually a secret inside of these words. Each letter represents an element, but it's only 4 letters in amen. It's skipping one letter, and I think it leaves the individual to encompass that meaning, which I think is what we're doing. A is the air quality. M is the earth. E is the ether. N is the water. The fire element, the secret of conversion, is the one that is missing in amen, but it's in the Trinity. Om, ooh, right here, right in the heart.
I felt, whoa.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yes. And this quality, brother, this ooh, is the inclusiveness that you're so freely sharing with me. This ooh, this inclusiveness that I am in your field as well. And you are sensing my energies, and we are part of this same field and this frequency, and we are seeing some of the same threads of consciousness that coalesce with the movement. You know, sometimes thoughts themselves are real. They're tangible in a sense. They exist in multi-dimensional worlds that we are also part of. We don't
Just
only.
as air.
I'm sorry.
Just as air, like we cannot very grasp or see it, but it affects us in an essential way.
Air, yes, it does.
And I feel that every element has to teach us something, and we have to surrender to them. And air is no exception. So whereas those intuition, those thought, those system that we cannot see, but they are there, they're so fundamentally there. And if we overlook or don't try to integrate that part to our life, whatever it means, there will be imbalance for sure.
The second part that comes to my mind is something that I asked Noon. I asked him, Noon, how, something along the lines of, how do I become godlike? What would that look like? And he said, this is in my words, he said something like, seek to fortify yourself against all the possible scenarios that could be brought onto you. Seek to fortify. And with that fortification, react. The reacting part is the subtle part. This is the part that I think most people miss just in life. It's like, okay, go with the flow. But we are living physical fortified bodies. Going with the flow, we melt. We need structure to flow. It's one of my favorite things that I teach myself at the park, which I did here earlier today when I'm at the park. I'm working on my structure, but also with my flow. Structure and flow, structure and flow. They have to go together. If all I did was flow, then I would end up with some imbalances. I would not be very strong psychologically, physiologically. And let's say if I was with, if I did have someone in my family or someone new to my life that was, let's say, high in the power of conversion, what are they converting? Structure. What if I don't have enough structure? What are they going to convert? See, this is metaphysical. It's so deep. But if I have lots of structure, and this person is very emotional and very fiery. Emotion means fire. It means the secret of conversion. It always comes from the heart, these deep emotions, this deep inclusiveness. And so it's going to convert. What's it going to convert? It's going to convert my structure into what? Into air and ether. And it's going to keep recycling in between us. And I believe that that's some of the, let's say, some of the relationship between man and woman. You see, if there are 3 main parts, and as they've said, there are three main parts to reality, a tripartite aspect. One of them is what they call vata, or air/ether. Those two work together. So that's the A and the E. Those are both at the top. Then you have the feminine element, technically speaking, which is the inclusive part, fire. This is actually a secret. This is a secret part. It's not something that can never really be discussed. It's a secret of conversion, just like the feminine. She can never really be discussed because she can never really be understood. The true essence of the feminine, not necessarily an individual person, but the spirit that tends to lean more in women than it does in many men, not all men. And then you have the masculine, which is a structure, and that's earth and water put together. So you have the earth and water, the kapha, so to speak. Then you have the pitta, P-I-T-T-A, the feminine, the fire, the symbology, the empiricism here, the symbology here, and then the asceticism here. The asceticism is the principles. The principles are the checkpoints inside of the ether that allow the freedom of movement to be converted into structure. And the structure is converted again into principles. And it goes back and forth. It goes in and out. It's going into itself, out of itself. And so in a relationship, one person is always going to have more structure, and we call that masculine, intuitively speaking. One person is going to have more symbology, so to speak, and that is going to create a certain kind of polarity. And depending on the dynamicism of that couple, then it can be optimized. But that first element at the top, in my experience, should always be there, because that's where the individual comes from, essentially. It's in those fundamental principles, because the other two are constantly dancing inside of myself. They're constantly dancing. I'm constantly restructuring. Some people, they ask me, who are you? I don't know who you are. And I'm like, me neither. I don't know what to tell you, me neither, but I have principles. I have rules that I abide by. I have these.
I feel you deeply here.
Yes, I have these rules that I abide by. Everything else dies. It dies and restructures. What does it restructure to? I don't know yet. And if you think you know, wait till next week. You'll
be disappointed. But there's tendency and pattern that it keeps repeating, and sometimes the obvious is not so obvious. Sometimes it is very obvious. So for the three part of like the feminine, I feel like the feminine have its very unique experience in life and in, like, intricacy to discover, whereas the masculine have its own too. And every time I'm in a feminine presence, without even like talking, like if I just sat and feel what I feel within, clearly creates something that wasn't there before. So at first I was feeling like the opposite polarity of energy, but together, like even like at some point I feel union with this body. Like I couldn't tell where I was feeling one hurt, like no separation, and it is something. So to me, I wonder if just is a natural tendency of our being of polarity to adjust itself. And I feel that doing a lot of inner work, if I talk about myself, I've seen this free electron that overcharges itself with what I'm doing in practices. Like life kicked me out of where I was orbiting back then. And now I'm falling in somewhere else, new people and new environment, and like way more, that make more sense. I don't feel disconnected anymore. I feel like I orbit around. Yeah, it's interesting. Like,
so you feel like you're moving with life somehow.
I went with the flow. Like there was invitation to go and was fear that blocked me to go, and I was like, I won't live by fear. I will just try this, maybe just this theory. Whereas if you just follow love, love would happen. So, and yeah, it worked. But still, if I just follow love, like love must be under will. And that is some, or love and under will. I have the hard time to like really say when I'm in meditation, like, so.
Yes. Let's say the free-flowing feminine. And again, it's not about a particular person, but let's say me and you are more masculine. Even if we integrate our feminine completely,
Yeah.
we are still going to, let's say, have a certain style of masculinity because that is the natural expression of our chemistry as it matures. So even though I consider myself, and I feel it in myself, I'm an incredibly feminine person, but
Me
my
too.
tendency, you very much are, brother. I appreciate that about you. But my tendency is to style it naturally as it comes out of me. The more mature and the more wholesome that I feel, it's always in a style of masculinity. That is how I feel more whole. But inside myself, how do I feel? I can feel incredibly feminine in a sense where I feel this strong sense of conversion and symbolism and symbols and so on. But where is my fulfillment and what is the part of me that allows this balance? The feminine part seems to come in on her own if she feels safe inside of me speaking. If I create the right structure using that first element, which is the vata, which is these principles and these rules, and I'm moving and I'm at the park. This is good to break down into 5 types of yoga as well. The 5 types of yoga can be broken down into the 5 elements. And one of those elements is bhakti yoga or service. And that's the secret of conversion and fire. Most people on this planet, most people on this planet are in that, which is why they can go to church and they have this experience, but they can't explain. They don't know what happened, but yes, I had this God experience, but they think it was somewhere else. It was somewhere else outside of them. It wasn't them, it was somewhere else. So you see, they're feeling the power of conversion and the identification process is happening there. But it seems like it's so something, the contrast of experience is so drastic for them that they put it outside of themselves. Whereas we, because we have these principles to start off with, we start off with the principles, not with the fire. We start off with the principles themselves. We encounter the fire. So we meet the fire in the void and we identify mostly with the void, which is a more balanced orientation in regards to how systems operate.
Noon always say like is very wary when it comes time to spirituality and all this like subject. And I got to understand that finally, like, let's say if I'm feeling some kinetic energy within myself, the minute I stop labeling it, I'm stopping feeling it almost. Like my mind gets like involved in what it means and like whatever. So I'm disconnecting. And I feel that whatever I'm doing with life, if I'm trying to like have a belief that it's a divinity that's within myself that push, like I lose some kind of perception of reality of what it is right now. I'm trying to conceptualize. So, but that's the funny thing, like doing this regimen and doing this work bring you to some realization of what it means. And so, but the way to approach it is, I feel it's completely different. Like to me, virtue really like is not even out of seeking it. It happened out of like just the truth, like just non-reaction most of the time.
What's brilliant about what you just said, brother? So those 3 things, I'm always using different words to connect them because I believe these are hyper universal. The first one is truth. Vata is truth. The second one is freedom. The third one is health. The masculine, so to speak, or the structure mixed with the flow is health. And then the feminine is freedom. And then the top one is truth. If I have truth, I have freedom. I have freedom, I have health. If I don't have truth, I can't have freedom. If I can't have freedom, I have health. Why do I tell the truth? To have freedom. Why do we tell the truth to one another? To leave the foundation for freedom. Those rules, those principles are not restrictive. They're to permit freedoms, not to take them. So it's really beautiful you said that.
My God. Yeah, I'm still absorbing, like, whoa. And so I really love like the Taoist view of the nine palaces. Have you ever heard of?
Please share.
It's like they talk about health, and the nine palaces is like the palace of wealth, the palace of relationship, the palace of there's nine. And it's interesting because yeah, you have to find harmony within all those things, and that will do the foundation. And like it's not separate. Really, relationship, it's interesting. Like to me, I was okay, I have to be around, like, you get to be in such a state that you become mirror like, so you will reflect. Like it's crazy during just one day how people will tell me, oh, you look sad, oh, you look angry, oh, you look tired. None of it is true, none of it is how I feel. So you become this mirror. And so now it's, I actually took care of one palace, be calm and to be grounded all the time, and to not engage and talk as much as people will want me to talk, maybe. But there are some people that I found that love having silence with me, love like just contemplating, or just this lifestyle, this soul's life. And now I feel accepted. I feel like, okay, I can go on with this regimen knowing that I don't have to sacrifice myself to please someone else. And that on itself is a releasing of tension.
Psychological tension.
Psychological tension. And like back then I was like, I will never put any tension to someone else. Like I will try to solve it all on my own to relax my brain. But at some point, what is someone else? What is me? Like, yeah, there's a distinction, but they're so intersect. And sometimes it's just easier. And after that, there's a releasing and you just feel it and you can access to it now. And why not doing both?
Yes.
That to me, it's no question of what I just do both now. I take it physically, I take it like outside of me. Yeah.
That's wonderful, brother. Thank you. It's wonderful leadership. I think that might be the most potent lesson that I feel in myself being experienced, which is, and of course I have to use symbols. Symbols are going to be the second part. Again, all symbols are always going to be technically on the technical aspect feminine. So I'm going to use some symbols, and usually the almond regimen or the architecton, which is another symbol. These symbols are very minimal that we use. The word ascetic, another symbol. These symbols are important, but these symbols are there to convert the principles into structure. They orient the mind. Leadership is one of those for me. And I think it's so, I think you'll resonate with this and you can let me know. When it comes to leadership, both inside of my new relationship and it comes to leadership, even in my family, with my aunt or with my uncle or any of these people, it's like you're saying, you become a mirror. So your own preferences to some extent, it's like, I don't care. I don't care about things the way I used to. I can choose what I'm going to care about. And that can be so mysterious, yes, for people to understand. It's like, where does he get his thinking from? Where is he making these choices from? His energy says this, but his actions are doing something else. Why is this action suddenly do, do, do? It's because discernment, something inside of me, which is the hyper individual, saw something in the long term, saw something and decided to course correct for the sake of a longer term image. This is the seeing of the future. This is true discernment, true leadership. That means there's a time to go with the flow and to mirror and to be passive and so on. But there are some times where people need me, let's say me, to say, no, that's not right, actually. Please correct that behavior. And that's because something in me believes, and I have no choice but to believe in myself, because who can I believe in if I'm not myself? I only know myself.
That's another thing. And like, I feel there's this, I don't know, like to me, I'm this very particular energy, which I feel we share. And like, is this kind of work that is associated, like this energy have to work in such a way in this world. And the most we resist to this inner energy and the more we don't let it out. And so I feel there's a lot of people who have been through the same kind of energy, and some of them have created a system to handle it. And Noon did a pretty good job in many ways. Like, my God.
I believe this is the future. And Brother Absu has said something that I think is very illuminating. Any future lifestyle, religion, or diet, because they've always been the same, traditionally speaking, they've all been one thing. All religion is simply the first quality, vata, and it has symbology, which is the second part, which is pitta, to convert into structures. And this helps communities, it helps people bond together. But the system of Noon, from my complete, what I believe is to be my very clear minimalist understanding of systems, how all systems work. Even his website, each bullet point is one of the 5 elements. I've been able to break that down. His mind just works this way now. He is in such alignment with his system. Is actually, most people would think, oh, that's his personality, that's why he chooses that system. That system is not necessarily his personality. He's absorbed himself so much to the foundation. All he is a conduit inside of that sense. So all future diets, religious systems, and so on are going to be derivations of the almond regimen.
You know what? I feel that because like, I don't try to be like Known in any sense of the way, but like its regimen bring to the state. And like, you get to be more profound, you get to not to react. And
you also feel like through this practice, you naturally understood all other religions?
Profound. Yeah. And even like the way you can feel like the astrology, like you get so sensible, you get like because any food that you ingest the very morning after that, you feel what it happens to your body. So Ayurveda, I get it, like, and the way, like, but not the depth of it, but like where it starts. And so yeah, there's a lot of
truth.
truth.
Wonderful.
And I feel too, it's the future is like where there's always this ongoing evolution, and we are become more self-aware of our species, of ourselves, and we know how to progress this evolution, I feel. And
yes.
So,
you know, something that I really like, I've applied, so I think someone said, and you'll recognize the voice that I'm speaking from as well, but the person I heard it from is not necessary. He said, you have to choose a dogma. You know, we all have a dogma. You have to choose a dogma.
I do.
And either this is the person speaking through me, this is what I've heard, either you choose a dogma that is like this: I'm a martial artist, I'm a yoga person, I'm a this, I'm a da-da. And one day we get to the edge of that dogma and we're no longer learning at the optimal efficiency anymore. We are meant to constantly be inside of this motion, the vata, the first element. If we have the first element, if we have truth, we have freedom, we have health. And truth is, there's two parts to truth. One of the parts is movement, and one of the parts is the ether, the straight void. If we have truth, we have freedom, we have freedom, we have health. Now, everyone's dogma, we each choose this dogma. Is that dogma expanding? Is it something that stops? And at what point doesn't stop? You see, I know my uncle, just as a passing example, martial arts. Now his knees are having some issue. That dogma served him for 10, 15 years. But now we're at the point where you need to expand that dogma.
Mm.
Inside of the dogma of the Taekwondo person, only kicks are allowed. You see, kicks are like the emphasis.
Yeah.
So what happens? That dogma creates restrictions. Same thing with certain yoga people who only do hatha. They only do the ashtanga. You see,
Oh, that's potent. That's
they only do
seeing the restriction and like the overindulgent.
Yes. And what's funny, even in the name Adi, which is my nickname from birth, from childhood, not only does it mean primal, but it's technically the name of what's called an Asura, which is someone who overindulges. It's technically a demon. It's the demonic quality in all of us. There's Sura and there's Adi. There's Sura and Asura. And Asura is someone who overindulges. It could be overindulgence in exercise. It could be overindulgence in anything.
Yeah.
It could be overindulgence in caloric restriction. It could be overindulgence in anything. You see, this is why I love this what we're calling our system, because what it works on is not restriction. It works on discernment and discipline. So we can be hyper hedonistic and yet hyper selective. This is why we're always going to be mysterious. Isn't that interesting?
So very interesting, because we go for the better good. Like, to me, like ingesting sugar right now will make no sense. I will lose my clarity. I will lose my ease within myself. I will like you're building something within yourself, and there is this like ease, this mechanical thing that happen. And when so you always,
it's beautiful you're saying that, because what I'm hearing you say, and it's beautiful how this comes full circle, what I'm hearing you say is you have truth. You know that there are principles, and if you move with those principles, if I take sugar, it's going to convert not into health. It's actually going to probably bring you somewhere else. It's going to do something else to the system.
Yeah.
And it's okay if it does, right? People make all these choices. They're not good. They're not bad, right? I am the light. I am the darkness. But if you have truth, why not use it? And we have truth. We are embodying truth. And so it's not about judging anyone else. This is something that I try to impress on the people a lot, because sometimes they see me living a certain way. They think I expect them to be perfect or something like this. And it's not about anyone else. It's not. It's not even about me striving for perfection necessarily. It's just going through with the best dogma that we have in access. Naturally, what we know, we're going to express, right? Naturally, what I know, what's inside of me, I'm going to act on my highest judgment. I'm not going to think about my highest judgment. It's if I have some shitty opinions, they're going to be corrected. And so it's the same thing with that dogma, which I feel is very valuable discussion and space simultaneously. Because even hatha yoga, too much ashtanga, and then there are certain consequences to that if that doesn't evolve. If we're only doing ashtanga and we're doing it inside of, let's say, are you able to hear me over the car?
Perfectly.
Wonderful. Okay. So let's say I'm only doing ashtanga. It's like, but I'm ignoring all these other parts. It's like eventually that dogma reaches its limit. It's going to serve me, but without other inputs, it's going to collapse. So what should those other inputs be? What should they be based on? There are infinite inputs, yes, but there are underlying patterns of all inputs. And they each correlate to what I would call one of the 5 elements. So the body in of itself just needs an input of one of those 5 elements in some angle, from some angle, some pressure. And I do this at the park. This is the foundation of what I teach myself. I teach myself systems. So let's say, and I can feel it in myself more and more as time goes on. So let's say there are 5 types of yoga, each correlate to the 5 elements. Those 5 can be broken down into 3, just like we did those 3, but those 3 could be turned into 5, those 5 turn into 9, those 9 turn into 144. But let's say these 5, we have these 5. One of them is going to be the hatha yoga, so to speak, which is the ashtanga. That's the physical stuff, the structure. Okay,
Earth.
yeah. We need the hatha yoga, we need the structure, we need the earth quality. That's wonderful, that's necessary. Okay, we have that check mark. Okay, I scheduled some of that, I need some of that in my day or my week. And it depends on each person, each system is different, but we need that input, some sort of earth, some sort of grounding into the physical nervous system, the physical muscle system. That is a necessary input. However people do it is up to them. So they can do boxing, they can do something else, they can do taekwondo, it doesn't matter, but the earth quality is going to be necessary inside of this physical organism and spiritual organism. Then you have the air quality, for example, and that's going to need what I would call mantra yoga. Mantra yoga activates the intuition and the intellect. That's technically what we're doing here. You see, we do this even without noticing we're doing this. It's the it's the mantras, the sounds that we make with our bodies and our mouths, the vibrations. It's the logos. So any sounds, all singers are mantra yogis. All singers are mantra yogis. This is why they tend to be very intellectual and intuitive people. All singers, you notice this quality, you meet a certain singer, they'll naturally seem like they're sharp, like they can move their mind because they are constantly practicing that quality. That's the air element, vata, the air element. It's technically a psychic element, technically speaking.
And I see that because like they're doing, sometimes there's like the flowy movement that we experience through, and it seems that they don't have no control on it. Like it's, and I can understand that because in like very crazy part, like I will always like do that because I was not able to control it at some point.
Yes.
And
so there's that quality. It is very important. Thank you. Then we also have dhyana, which is space. We're also using that here, which is wonderful. Dhyana, the space element.
Dhyana, to me, it's I've saw one of my friends that have such a way of looking at life, on concentrating in, he will always put himself in peripheral vision and almost live through all his in peripheral. And we spent 2 months together because I wanted him to teach me how is just go on with this way of being, and it's very absorbative. Like to a point that I was like, okay, first I was clearly blind on my peripheral because of the unuse of it. And the more it gets, especially on the regimen, I feel like my vision gets better and better. It makes sense, but like there's many ways to have this focus on life, and that is very absorbative. There is just, yeah, there's still an object of concentration, but it's still, so I can just sit and the peripheral, I feel just open up like this part of the, just like a stretch. And over time, like the peripheral become like the normal and not the tunnel vision, where is this the constriction? Like constriction is not your normal, like the release is more.
Yes.
No, it's always a nail in between at the end. Like
so question which I think I know the answer to. From the time we talked till now, are you seeing auras now?
I'm not there yet.
Because I feel like you are. That's been my impression on you in this conversation from the last one. Do you see a physical
answer? Yeah. Oh, okay. Whitish.
Yes. Maybe some color you can see. Maybe you think a color. What color comes to you?
I don't know if it's biased, but I had yellow in mind.
Yes. Yes. This is the Manipura. That's probably the one that I'm using the most right now. And it literally is the one that I'm using the most right now. By the way, I can feel it. The Manipura, sometimes symbolically, some call it a lion. Doesn't matter though. The important part is this part is the part that martial artists use. It's the stabilizing element of energies. So all the body's prana is channeled through the Manipura. This stabilizes. This is also the most important quality of Vishnu or Lakshmi. What makes them significant is they have mastery over that part, the Manipura, this part of the body, this yellow, it's right around here. It's the disc around the solar plex. It's the center of the body. It's right below the heart, right above the belly. This part is very important on the regimen. I'm sure that you notice when you're perhaps exercising that you'll start breathing through that part of your body. You're intuitively tapping into this, brother. I appreciate. And any sound we put in this part of our bodies will naturally reverberate through the whole body. So this is somewhat of a, let's say, if we just put attention to this spot and we give it some input, some image, that image will reverberate through the body. We take some sound, we put it in that spot, it will move throughout the whole body. We take Shambho, we take Shiva, we take Vishnu, we take Namo, it doesn't matter. We take Kali and we put it in this part of the body and we let it move. And naturally, the prana will go through the whole body of that vibration.
So it'll influence the whole system.
Exactly. So dhyana yoga is allowing you to tap into this. It's this peripheral vision and peripheral feeling. This is what we're doing now.
By the peripheral system.
Yes, 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 exactly. Thank you. This peripheral sensation. And yet we still are aware that we have a center, that we have a core, and we also are feeling our peripheral energies, our peripheral systems, our peripheral bodies. Maybe, and this one's trickier, so maybe for a moment, there's also peripheral dimensions and information comes through, and then we can speak on this information that comes through. Sometimes it comes through in images. Images is going to be the symbolic element, the bhakti yoga, the service. It's like, what am I in service to? I don't know. The subconscious is feeding me something. Right now, I'm seeing a sharp point of blue, like a marble right here on you. And so it's coming through to me to say that, and how your head is actually more like a red color. You see, these are symbols, but they can help convert structures of thought. What do I really am? What do I really look like right now? We can move all the chakras throughout the body. The face can become red, and the shoulders can become blue, and the chest can become yellow, and so on. We can move the chakras as there's a certain mastery. And all that usually comes from the development of the Manipura. If we can develop the maintenance center, the Manipura, we can move any part of the body. This is why martial artists work on that. Yes.
I just had an insight. Like, let's say if my face is red, like face, I love, like red, I love to say it's like this foundational root chakra. And if the red is there, like maybe like intellectualism is where I feel that like true knowledge is where I get more safety. And like the more I get to understand, the more I will feel safe. And to me, I saw that as an like safety must not come from, because at some point, like not knowing is the key. So it's weird. Like to me right now, knowing, not knowing the balance of them and how to approach this body, how to experience this life, but how to explain it in words. Because to me, I can see a difference between like experience and how I will put it in where like the map is not a theory kind of thing. I see it drastically, but I still gonna see the very use of the map. And like the more experience you have, the more the map is relevant.
Yes. So it's like the goal here is mastery. And from that being the goal, we naturally have clearer maps. So there's no right or wrong, but simply by exploring, we have a better way of explaining because we have a thorough understanding. So it's not right or wrong to have the head to be red or the shoulders some other color, but simply practicing that or noticing that even, because we, at what moment did it become red? I don't know, but it's red. It's just
it's interesting.
So just to notice, oh, it's red. That's interesting. What else do you want to show me, body? What else is going to happen? What else is going to come through? Is my head going to turn blue? Or is it going to stay red and then a part of me is going to turn blue? Or is my chest going to turn purple? What else can happen in my body? What else can you show me? Who can I be right now? This is another mysterious part in other people experiencing you of mastery. Because people, usually energetic people, quote unquote spiritual people, of course we're all spiritual beings, entities, there's no way around that. We're everything, all of us. But people who, let's say, they mostly go by energy, they will walk by, they feel your energy. Right now your head feels red. Okay, this is who you are, you see. But then they come back tomorrow and your energies are something else. They're like, okay, I don't know what this is. Suddenly your shoulders are some other color and your feet are another color, and so on. You see, but they feel this intuitively, whether they see it or not, they feel it. And so you might feel different than the pattern they're used to seeing you as, and that's fine. And it's probably the most interesting part of my experience, to continue to change and to simultaneously discover not who I'm changing into, because I don't identify with who I'm changing into. The world somewhat decides who I'm changing into. I'm reacting to the world. My only participating role is to stand firm. Let the world sweep me through. Let the ocean move in turbulence. Let the tsunami come. I'm a man on a boat.
Yet I won't lose peace.
I'm a man on a small boat in a huge Jurassic ocean, and it's storming, and somehow I'm very calm. I'm very calm. I'm just looking at my finger, checking the wind. Okay, that's the mastery that I'm looking to develop, to be calm in that situation. And I have a raft. You see, it's small.
Yeah, is this this there's a this
survive the
big
iceberg.
this
The raft could survive the iceberg that the Titanic was sunk by. You see, he would just move out of the way, or he would walk on the ice. You see, he could carry the raft. He'd just swing it over his shoulder. This is the power of adaptability.
Yeah, like whatever it's on your way, you're just like, all
and
right.
You can pick up things if it's necessary. Okay, we need a certain, let's say we need to get it to a certain island by a certain time, and the person on the boat, he knows this, he can sense it in his being because he's developed his senses. He's like, okay, we need to go to that island. Suddenly what will happen? More parts of the raft will come in, sea turtles will come, and he'll use their shells, and he'll use more parts of rafts and things like this, pieces of wood that get sunken into the water, that they move through the water. He'll use them temporarily, he'll rip them up real quickly to get to where he needs to go in that moment, then drop it. He doesn't need to carry it all. And so I think what's important is, where do we need to go? What's important in this life, this temporal life that I'm passing through? What is important here? Is it all the things that I've accumulated? Or is it my ability to accumulate and let go?
Yeah, that's where, to me, like this whole question of determinism and like control, like it's interesting topic. Like I know that my will is there's this path like of hedonism I can indulge in all those things, but at the end, like if I know better things than that, I will end up there. And so I will end up doing this, maybe fasting or lifestyle or as training or getting healthier, because it do me better. And at some point I will be forced to go through that way somehow. Like it maybe takes 100 lifetime to understand that, yeah, maybe vices are not that, like, don't serve me that well. And so it's interesting to how to apprehend. And after being all that, like I've gotten in such a way that I will just let myself loose and all the vices and all my compulsion and all, just to find peace in that, just to be okay. That's one of the reality of this world. We can like be so overwhelmed and so like no control over your that, but can you find peace in that? Can you find no guilt in that? Can you find like respect for you even in that. And that's an interesting work, like whereas you're not where your mind wants you to be, or like your soul on you, whatever concept, but you're not there. You're want to be somewhere. And like I feel this, where I find like the minimum acceptance is where I was completely not where I wanted to be. And I don't know why I say all that, but like,
Yes.
it seems
What I think is remarkable there, and two things come to me, and I think I can weave it together by mentioning the fourth element. So we've talked about air, we've talked about ether, we've talked about earth, and
fire.
then we have fire, bhakti. There are three words that I can use for here. I could use bhakti, which is the, let's say, the science of symbolism, of conversion, of converting things, making deals even. Let's say we have a business and then we have all these leads. Can we convert those leads into deals? Or can we convert that energy into transformation? One way or another, it's just the science of conversion, and it's actually always a secret. It's always a secret because it can never be explained, the subtle element of fire. For example, it's a sunlight is fire, essentially. And what's remarkable about sunlight is I only know it exists because of the presence of things. It only exists because it converts whatever is there into something I can see.
Yeah.
When it's not there, I'm simply seeing the absence of light. The absence of conversion is darkness, but it's always, those things are always there in the ether. They just aren't converted into a form I can witness, I can experience. So that's what bhakti does. That's what fire does. That's what symbolism does, is it gives.
Do you feel that it gave you clarity in some way, that it destroy illusion, like fire?
Oh, it's always illusion. It's always illusion, but we get to pick our illusions.
Yeah, true.
So this is the second part that it's wonderful that you asked that. This is the second part I wanted to bring up for myself, which is we get to choose a dogma, but no matter what, we still have a dogma. We get to choose our vices, but we still have vices. Sitting in the park and spending, let's say, large amounts of time there, that's your vice. That's my vice. That's someone's vice. They're deeply hedonistically enjoying that thing. And that can be taken, let's say, too far. You have people who just do nothing and spend all their time inside of a cave in the Himalayas, and that has its purpose. Someone could spend that time and their thoughts will reverberate through all of mankind. That's fine if that's, everyone has their own free will, but that can be taken too far in a sense where there is a more optimal way. Do they need to do that? No, but for the sake of truth, and if I know how to communicate that truth, I'm going to communicate that truth. There is an optimal way. I've heard something recently, and I think it ties into this perfectly. You have some people who they worship their God and they eat people for the sake. You see, is there anything wrong in that? No, but if someone tries to eat you, brother, I don't care who they worship. You see, is that okay. I understand and I appreciate that everyone has their own way of exploration and appreciation of trying to get to what they want. But is that vision inclusive of values? Is it inclusive of the things that I can discern for the long term are important? And I have to be willing to die on that sword, which is the difference between, let's say, the tyrant king and the wise king, the Cain story and the Abel story. Neither one of them is guaranteed salvation. They just have different attitudes about it. And Cain does something that he should never do, which is this competitive thing. And both of them, competition is good, but what are we competing with? What are we competing to? What do we want to do? And what Cain does is he doesn't like the competition. And what does he do? He kills the competition. He kills the only thing that can make him better, the only image that he has that can convert him into higher order. Now he just has himself. That's why he's cursed. This is the reason he's cursed.
Wow. Potent.
He curses himself by destroying his own ideal. This is my interpretation of these stories. Because God isn't outside of us, it's inside of us. And God lives in both of them, the Cain and the Abel, the wise king and the tyrant king. But how they express that determines the future. Is it right? Is it wrong? It doesn't matter. These are broad generalizations, but they are generalizations that operate on Most people call this duality. Left and right is always wrong. Always being left and always being right is always the wrong answer. What's the right answer? To pay attention, to be willing to be wrong. This is what you were saying about non-resistance. Hesitation is sometimes the worst sin.
Oh, so much.
The less I hesitate, the faster I learn from my mistakes. The more I can be, okay, I put my foot in my mouth all day, especially sometimes inside of my beautiful relationship. Put my foot in my mouth. I say a word that it's perhaps not thought through, or maybe I can never think through. You see, there's no way to not make mistakes, whether that's in relationship, whether that's a relationship with other people, no matter what, there's no way for me not to make mistakes. But if someone is giving me their heart, their everything, is it the right thing to do to question my position? If God has given me this gift as a leader, is it the right thing to look at my shoes and say, wow, I don't know if I could fit in these? How dare you? Sometimes I have this dialogue with myself. How dare you question whether or not you should be in shoes that you are in?
Yeah, yeah, true.
You're in the shoes. You've been given this, whether or not you want it or not. How dare you be wasting time questioning whether or not you should be in these shoes? Stand on your own legs, because that is most beautiful. This is my own inner dialogue that I'm sharing.
And people need that. Like, it's like, as much as you need to incarnate this role and to empower it and to be in your shoe, like, people need somehow, I feel we all have this role. But you know, all those things, like this morning I was rereading the sutra, and like there was like, it's all part of the consciousness, like the spiritual experience, like this old thing. Whereas this pure awareness that is just seeing or not seeing, or I don't know, like just aware. And that again, like just when I read those things, it's like if it's always those both, like taking life seriously, taking like those stuff, like there's this deep detachment for real, like, but at the same time I'm here. Presently there's limitation. If I look around me, there's four walls and like limitation, and like this very flesh body is limitation. So I was like, okay, my reality right now seems to be that, or maybe not, but like first I have to accept.
No, right?
Yeah, I have to accept, and to find peace in that. Like there's always like wanted for me like to be boundless, but I feel so much freedom in restriction. I feel so much security having a roof and walls over my head, and I feel like so much freedom within myself doing this regimen, this austere regimen. So
because one provides the other.
One provides the other.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but I have to work.
Provides freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, because let's say I'm coming up with another example. Cain is in me, right? It's not like, oh, that's someone else and not me. But am I going to act on that? Well, I'm sure Cain didn't think he would either. So do I have the freedom in myself that when this quality comes up, how am I going to react to that? If I do feel a moment of jealousy, how am I going to react to the person that I'm not a jealous person in this sense at all, but this is the example that I know is very common. Let's say my girlfriend or my partner is looking at someone, let's say my partner is looking at someone. Am I going to yell at him, fist fight him? You see people do this. Am I going to fist fight him because he is, no, or am I going to look at him and be like, I wonder what she sees in him? You see, how am I going to kill my ideal? Or am I going to look at what does he have that I don't have? Maybe I could get some of that. That feels good. You see, we kill our own, let's say, connections to God, our own connections to being something better than what we are. And I think that this is common with, inside of my own experience, it's eternal, which is fine. I love the eternal. I'm eternally here, eternally present, moving towards the future. How can I kill someone who represents what I could be? I couldn't do that. I shouldn't do that. If I ever have that instinct, I should stop myself or check myself.
I feel this is where I find back to you a lot, like in those moments, is like You know, even if I'm good on the regimen and I have this disciplinary, like tomorrow I can still like lose it. So I have to always remind me that, okay, thank you for that day again. Like you made it. And like, it's even if it's easy sometimes, like, yeah, but I have to like really honor that and to not take it for granted. And even like with, let's say, a girlfriend, like, you, if like, at some point, like on the brahmacharya mindset, I was like, I'm fine being alone, and if therefore just being myself is the gift of being alone, like, right, I'll embrace it. But then there's someone who love being there. There's this human that just coming close to you is like want to be around you, and like I'm just such a gift. Okay, I can be myself, and you want to be around. That's it for me. It's cool. What does it mean? I don't know.
Yes.
And if she want to go somewhere else, like the very first time she was not there, and maybe she will not be there someday, and like I'm not trying more anymore. I'm just appreciate the gift that life bring me, and I'm trying to build my own gift that is, yeah, change. There was a lot for me in life, and there's a deep peace and change, and always this thing, but fudge, like, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's no denial, like the jealousy is still there, like those feeling, those very thing, like maybe I miscall it jealousy. Next time I should just observe it. How does it feel, like energetically? Sometimes what we mistake for anger is just maybe another form of peace that you feel within yourself, but you don't want it, you label it, and you're restricted, and it's plugged there. And I feel if we don't know what it is, like it flows, and like you see the whole circle of what it was supposed to be.
That's so beautifully said, brother. So one of my practices is a type of Zen. So in Zen, anger is actually intense emotion, not in any particular direction. It's just intense emotion. But it's very similar to, and I think this is what we experience in caloric restriction. When we feel negative in our bodies, usually someone feels negative and they eat something. Okay, food makes me feel good. Okay, meat must make me feel good. You see, because they have that association. But when you're calorically restricting and you feel bad, and then you realize it has to come from within yourself to make yourself feel good again.
You see that exactly, like, because I feel people mistake being an hypoglycemia, whereas they don't feel good and comfortable. Is it actually I feel grounded. I feel very there. I feel way more calm. And like they mistake that from being like weak, or I don't know that.
Well, what's interesting here too is, let's say I do feel weak. What input am I going to give my system to feel strong again? And if I have naturally some things that I know, it's like, okay, that, and that are not going to be my inputs. I've already chosen that. So what inputs do I have available? Exercise. Oh, you feel weak. Why am I going to exercise? I exercise. I exercise and I feel better. Why? And later on, I learned that the act of exercising does two things. One, it increases dopaminergic density. More of this neurotransmitter means I want to actually feel like working more. Dopamine is the currency of work. It's not necessarily the reward system. That's a new input for me, intellectually speaking.
It increase its like
The
the
density
amount.
of neurons inside of the body are increased in the dopaminergic efficiency and the quality of this is why sometimes it feels so good to exercise in caloric restriction. You're in that deeply calorically restricted state, and then you do some push-up or lift some weight, and it's that kundalini submersion. And that is that deep dopaminergic density that is being augmented inside of the nervous system. And what does that do? Even though we're getting more tired, we still want to work. Why? Because dopamine is actually the currency for work. That dopamine, it's been misunderstood. Some people have thought until recently, it's like, oh, what dopamine is it puts me to sleep. That's the reward system. It's like, once I feel the reward, I stop seeking something. No, it now says, it's now, the body gives dopamine in the middle of working, not when we find something. So this is what they learned. And this is what I love about these studies, these new studies, that they're actually tracking dopamine throughout a process. So what's really interesting, this spoon is so perfect for this too, by the way. They realize that dopamine is here in the signal. It's like, okay, now I'm thinking about exercise. Now I'm in the middle of exercise. Now I'm ending my exercise. Some people feel this, and the science until recently has supported that, oh, this is the moment I feel dopamine. And so what I need to do is finish this and then I'm done. Actually, the highest levels of dopamine are right here in the middle of working.
They don't feel it. Like they mistake the feeling of it, you mean?
I think what it is, speaking on perceptually, is that's the moment people are so submerged, maybe they're not making those memos, and maybe we've allowed the thought of dopamine being the reward system to sink too deep into the public mind that we're just naturally associating that way instead of actually being sensitive enough to go into our perception. But many of us workers, like me and you, people who are constantly inside of this, we realize that we are happiest when we're in the middle of work, in the middle of the fast, in the hardest part of the fast, or we're happiest when we're in the middle of an exercise. I'm happiest when I'm looking for the spoon, not when I find the spoon. I'm happiest, sometimes I eat and I'm like,
that's profound.
It's profound, isn't it? And sometimes, let's say when we break fast, sometimes it's like, wow, I wish I would have gone longer. Don't you get that feeling sometimes?
Yeah, so much.
That interesting, even though this is supposed to be the meal that releases all this dopamine, and it does, but the dopamine levels of the day were higher. That's why it feels that way. It's from the contrast. The expectation of the meal was higher than the actual meal. It's fascinating.
Wow.
So the activity of seeking is more pleasurable than finding. You can sort of see the design of the regimen a little bit here.
How profound. Like that. This is why, like, for real, I'm going through back the sutra and like even like Iliad's book and to read like the M4, because I feel like every time I go through that, there's more. It's so profound.
Yes.
Wow. But true, like it's when it comes time to eat, sometimes I just don't want. Like I'll do it for the sheer needs of it, but like it's.
Sometimes I feel I'm like, can I wait another 2 days? I feel that in myself. But I know that it's better to have a meal and to limit the meal if I want to keep that. So this is where good judgment comes in. It's because if I want to keep that high level, then I actually should eat the right amount.
Yeah.
And by eating the right amount, not too much, not too little, in a few hours from now, when I wake up, I will actually already be ready inside of that state, the highest state. Whereas if I would have gone another day, yeah, I'd feel good, but that wouldn't be consistent 4 days in a row or 5 days in a row or 6 days in a row. So immediately I'm creating a higher dip, but also a deeper drop. And that's not good for overall efficiency over time. So we're creating an optimized lifestyle of highest productivity of work and ease simultaneously. It's amazing balance. It's amazing balance and discernment that's here. Some people hear those words, they have their own projections on those words. Those words can never be understood unless someone is practicing.
That's where I get like the point, because to me, balance is like, my balance will not be the same to someone else. And like, whereas the restriction for me, finding balance is like, maybe, okay, I did 23 hours and like for dessert, I'll have maybe dairy, like to an extreme, like and that will be my extreme. Whereas if I'm very extreme, the other pole, I will just have a slab of tofu and like spice and like very like the pure materia, and that's it. And so I find balance as doing a little bit of both. So sometimes I'm very like, wow, the food is perfect, and sometimes my girlfriend is there, my friend is there, want to share some, I don't know what, and so I add this balance because I know that it will drive me forward. Well, it's interesting sometimes, and I have a goal to reach where I have this certain purity and this certain type, but I know that the path to get there is through balance. Is like over time, what I will consider to be normal will shift, and my view of extreme will shift too. But to keep it ground, to keep progressive, I always keep balance, and like to refine what balance means, to refine to a point I will feel where will be no trying to balance. Like I will stand there and it will running on itself. I don't know. This is.
And
because
simultaneously,
life brings you into stillness.
yes. And simultaneously, even though we're increasing these dopaminergic density and certain things are becoming easier, something in my belief will always be hard. We're just more willing, without even thinking, to continue going into it. But the pain is still there. And in fact, it may even be more intense, but it's going to bother us.
Yes, that's why, because you're in
body.
it for 4 years and you still have days that are extreme. And I'm just, when I saw that,
Yeah, you know what's interesting too, a good input for this is I actually, if I continue to be as strict as I was initially, every day was hard. It just bothered me less.
yeah, after someone like nothing impress you and nothing bother you, you're just like, wow, wow, wow.
And likewise, same thing with all my other emotions. I feel more, more love, more, everything. Everything's more intense. But the drawbacks of any of those bother me less.
There's this Isis, Apep, Osiris, and I think Apep is like this kind of mythological monster that is come to like eat the planet of the universe. I don't know, and like every day Raw have to fight him back. And sometimes I just like love to say that it's all those, yeah, it's inevitable. Like life will bring you this destructive challenge that you have to overcome. And
what's beautiful is that
maybe
story,
wishful thinking too.
That story is very reminiscent of the story. I don't want my glare to block off my glasses to bother you. That story is very reminiscent of the Cain and Abel on a very technical level. You have Apep, which is technically Cain, just embodied inside of a physical person. So the story goes something like, from my interpretation, you have the infinite waters of Nun, which is something that is beyond chaos and darkness. You see, this is what, before I break my fast, I do that 10-minute meditation, and then I do my stanzas. I am the darkness. I am the light. I am the night. I am the day. I am many. I am one. I am the earth. I am the heavens. I am the fire. I abide within the waters. I am the all. I am the void. I am love. I am hatred. I am destruction. I am creation. I am goodness. I am evil. I am balance itself. And this is, the next is words that I add. I am a center of consciousness, of influence, of power. My will, my birthright. My will is my birthright and indomitable property. Subconscious guide me. Subconscious guide me. Subconscious guide me. Show me God's face. From the infinite waters of this experience, the first thing to be born, you might have noticed, or you might notice, is darkness. That's Apep. Apep is technically the first one born, but so is order, so is Osiris, so is Atum, Atom, the first bit of order out of chaos. But most atoms have space. They have more space in them than there are atoms. There's more space inside of an atom than there is an electron, than there are protons or neutrons. It's space. That's the most encompassing part of an atom. It's spaciousness. So darkness was first, but pretty much simultaneously there was also order, Atum, from the infinite space. There was this darkness, Apep, and then the first bit of order, the first consciousness, the first atom of individuality. And you can feel that. You can feel what that feels like, to be the first one here in all moments. that is Adam. It's the place that it's the prerequisite of all thoughts. It's the first thought. That the fact that I exist is the first thought. And whatever I am, yes. And whatever I am is beyond light and darkness. I am the noon, the noon, or noon is also
Is
equivalent.
your awareness? Is it?
Noon?
What is noon? Like
Noon is the infinite waters. It's beyond light and darkness. It's beyond consciousness and darkness. It's beyond awareness and the unawareness. It's something that can be experienced, but it can't be remembered. What is experienced is Atum.
it's beyond awareness.
It's beyond awareness. The noon is beyond awareness and memory. And subtly over time, we sort of get closer and closer to what that is, to remembering what that is. Because the memory is sometimes it becomes more subtle over time, especially the 10-minute meditation before the eating. That's like the last 10 minutes. Those last 10 minutes are important. They outline the rest of the day, the rest of our lives, those last 10 minutes. And then by and by, the memory becomes clearer and it starts to creep closer and closer to understanding what the noon is, what death really is. It's life. Death and life are the same thing. It can never be understood. It's not awareness. It's not unawareness. It's beyond memory. It can't be remembered. It can't be forgotten. It's always been there. And we only remember it, or we only know it exists by the development of the first one. We keep coming back and forth from the infinite waters to the recognition of Apep and Atum, and the first memory is born in between them. That's the first memory all human beings have, is realizing that there is a single consciousness, the first being, the first awareness that is here. This awareness, this realization is the first memory, but we get closer and closer to noticing, not remembering. We notice that there is something before that. We feel it, we sense it. It's always been there, and it'll always be there. It's this eternalness. Apep is technically the Akashic record, so it's not that. It's not the Akashic records. It's beyond that. It can never be understood, never be intellectualized. Intellect comes from Atum. It comes from order and Apep dancing together, from space and from movement happening together at one time. Vata, so to speak, comes from the noon. What's interesting about M4 is that it has 4 elements. 3 of those are the same things we've been talking about. You have truth, freedom, health, mind, matter, mathematics. Noon is mortality. Mortality is the thing that ties them all together, that brings them all together. It constantly weaves in and out of itself. It can never be understood, nor forgotten, nor remembered. If I have mind, I have matter, I have matter, I have mathematics. I have truth, I have freedom, I have health. The second is always going to be an expression of the first. Why do we tell the truth? To have freedom. Why do we have freedom? What happens when we have freedom? We have health. The mind is expressed through matter.
But is it not funny? Then there's another paradoxal thing I feel, because the more I get on my path and all those things, the less I'm tired to seek. Like, I'm for real, intellectually, I don't try to seek no more because I feel that I got it. But I really understand like this paradox now, whereas seeking like puts you in such a way that actually it's better to seek just for the sake of it. And like, even if you seek this passionately, because I feel when I understood like this whole path, we're all coming back to this emptiness, this void, or this, I don't know, like it's so, yeah, contemplating that a lot.
You see that emotion and that association, that pain of not knowing is the reason we seek, and it's always going to be there.
And how do you treat that? If there's a way to operate, like,
yeah, you're treating it now in the seeking. That's what's interesting. Sometimes we feel the lack the incomplete feeling. And it's like, why is that there? As if it shouldn't be there. One does not exist without the other. We can't be complete without being incomplete. Same thing with
what? Wow.
Yeah, brother. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for leading yourself. Same thing with success. You see, people feel success and they actually analyze their greatest successes. It comes from unmet needs when they were children. Their first business, all this wealth. The reason it felt so successful is because they have felt so unsuccessful. There was the contrast to create the positive emotion. There was the contrast of the negative emotion. We can't have one without the other.
That's why, like, I felt that somehow I needed to like deep, like very deep in like doing what I want to indulge, like to just grasp. And I'm very aware that if I do that, like sometimes it will create this like too much of the other side. So now it's just to really like try to put balance way before it will just to stabilize it. But there's a learning in those two polarity, I feel.
And somehow being right in the middle is like, it's this interesting place. Like yesterday, someone asked me how I was feeling and I was crying hysterically. I'm totally fine with crying. And I was crying hysterically. And they're like, how do you feel? And I'm like the ocean in hell, but hell is more comfortable than I thought it'd be. And it's quiet. Wow. And they told me it wasn't going to be this quiet. I didn't expect that. A profound wisdom, isn't it? I feel like the ocean in hell. And hell is quieter than I thought it'd be. I can't just float away into the ether. I am in a body to live in a body. With having a body comes also the observation that I have not a body too.
You know, on that perspective, this is where like this whole situation with worldwide pandemic, and I'm just, okay, there's a lot of war in the world, but where I keep my peace inside, and like to be at peace in a world of war, it's nice. But at the same time, this is where it's confusing at some point, is where because Noon, I love when you said like just right in the beginning of this book, like comforting idea we must be wary of. And as like when to act, what to choose, like in the perspective of death, like there's so much detachment. So whatever I choose to do for real, I will be like,
I'm always wrong and always right.
Yeah. So there's this deep confusion about life that you go on. Like, I think I reached it. I always wanted to reach the point of pure confusion, but like now it's pretty much, I don't know, maybe now just that is a certitude. So I might reach on the bottom, the bottomless of confusion. But
what's interesting is, and of course, there's always this spectrum, right? Because I think we all exist in a spectrum, but these principles stay with us. So what's really fun for me is realizing that I do feel confused in a clear way. even
right. Your spine is straight.
Yes.
You're going in a way you're doing, you know what you do, how to handle this body, yes, how to follow your intuition, but sometimes like intellectually everything is just like nonsense.
Yes, wonderful.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that's how it feels for me as well, inside of this development that we're sharing, and so we understand.
I'm very glad, thank you, because like I know that confusion somehow is like, it's nice to feel, it's nice to have, and pretty look nice spot to hang out, but like sometimes you see
Do I have
outside
the
people.
structure to hold confusion? That's a valuable insight. You see, confusion is not confusion of structure. It's not because I have a body, and the body is the part that sort of like makes this, it makes this whole equation sensible. It's like, okay, I'm confused. Do I have a structure to hold the confusion? Okay, I'm in the ocean. Do I have a raft? Do I have arms? Without that awareness, what's happening? I'm drowning. Without that awareness that I have a structure, that I have arms or a raft, I need to know what I'm working with. If I have that clarity as to what I'm working with, and I can see it, right? So it's if I can't see it, then I don't have it. And some might ask, well, the whole world's an illusion, right? Because they feel confused. The whole world's an illusion. How do you know what you have? How do you know what's real? It's as real as I can tell right now. I have no choice. I see arms. I'm going to use them. No choice. So if I'm walking down the street and I've decided, okay, I'm going to go here, right here to this call. I've decided this. So many things can happen. I came here, look, I came here an hour late. You see, there was some confusion. There was some hiccups inside of my intellectual abilities. I miscounted a moment. It's just a number, one number I missed, you see, inside of my mind. And you see that an hour is nothing at all, but it's also a long time.
Yeah, and being able to breathe in confusion, I feel is like.
Yes. So the question is, do I have the structure to hold the confusion? The fact I made a mistake. Okay, I made the mistake. Am I going to feel, how much anxiety am I willing to feel? Can I handle the anxiety? Oh, I made a mistake. I don't like going against my word. These are all good things. They're valuable things. They're fine. Let them be. I should let them be. Because if I let it be, it's going to convert. If I feel angry, let's say, it's going to turn into focus. If I feel anxiety, it's going to turn into excitement. That's literally what they teach in Zen. It's this transmutation of emotion into non-opinionated emotion, which is, it doesn't have any negative association to it. So it's just pure feeling, pure vibe, pure expression. And then it's not hindering our, let's say, our judgment, which is the only thing that I have inside of the ocean. It's like, okay, I'm in the ocean. Okay, I just got slapped. I feel pain. What am I going to do about it? Can't do anything about the ocean slapping me. What am I going to slap the ocean back? No, keep swimming. See, that awareness of what I have to work with is the
So
structure.
discernment is like one of the only tool we can use to like navigate this 3D realm of life, is, I feel.
Practically the only tool.
Because if you like all the other, I feel, are quite misleading. If you only follow your earth, and like the sacral energy, if you just like but if you go through life with that, like only that, it will be pretty dry and pretty like well structured maybe, I guess, but like the value of all this life will not be there.
Yes, inside of the Ayurvedic system, they would call the mind the coordinator. And what it does is it re-coordinates the outputs that we didn't expect, and we sense disturbances using our senses, and it re-coordinates them into new inputs for the system continually. So let's say I'm inside of this conversation. These 5 parts of all systems are working in this conversation. The first one is called the sankalpa, or a goal. All human beings, we have a dharma. Whether we believe in it or not, we have it inside of us. It's intuitive sometimes. It's delivered through the subconscious and acted through me. Why? Because my mind can't keep track of everything all at once, all the time. That's completely fine. It doesn't need to do that. It doesn't need to remember everything all the time. It's actually, that would make it less effective. So I have lots of things that are stored somewhere else. They don't need to be thought about right now. Right now, I have a goal. I have a sankalpa. Maybe it's intuitive. Maybe it's a dharma that I just know I feel oriented to. And it's naturally playing out in this conversation, even if I can't verbalize what it is. This call feels meaningful to me. Why? Can't explain it, but there's meaning in this conversation. So it must be in accordance to my dharma. It's a sensorial experience that my body's telling me that this is the right place to be right now. And how did I get here? I don't know how I got here. I got here by having a dharma. The dharma in of itself, it's part of the equation that creates everything else. So we all naturally have a dharma. And how do we know we're in our dharma? Whatever feels meaningful. Meaning.
There's this thing that I'll always remind myself, because they say that present, past, future, all that is illusory, but for the conscious mind, whereas you only live life through present. But somehow unconsciously we have access to like all these potentialities, and like past and things happen.
Past
And Is it true? But I love to like think that sometimes when I see someone and I don't know why, but it feel like maybe I know this person for all my life. Like, and maybe it's because it happened in the future. You really had spent 20 years with that person and live some cathartic moment or whatever. But so I love to like to put this in perspective that as a species we know way more than we think, and like it's very honorable to like to go with those feelings. Like I don't know, but I know at the same time. Like that's why I'm here actually.
Yes. So we have this Dharma, which is connected to things that I may not intellectually grasp, but I'm experiencing. And as someone who doesn't know what's real or not, I have what is real is to me, you see? So I'm acting on that. I'm being pulled with that. And so from the Dharma, you have the Dharma, then right after that you have and I have to put these in linear order because it comes back full circle. So first you have the Dharma goes through the coordinator, through the mind. We have the Dharma comes through us, whether it's upwards or downwards. We have the ancestral information and we have the future information. We have the angels and we have the devils. We have everything, and it's coming through both sides through the coordinator. Through the coordinator, it's turned into inputs. Another word for inputs is dhyana. Dhyana means spaciousness. From this infinite space, I get inputs of how I'm going to live my life. I don't know where these ideas come from. Where are these thoughts coming from? From the void, from nowhere. That's where inputs come from.
But if you observe them, you get to see what kind of energy influence you.
This is where we observe them. So right after inputs, we have transport, which is motion or movement, which is interesting how the light is using my hand. So we have motion or movement. So we have the Dharma, we have the goal, which is acting through me, it's moving through me. And from that goal, I have a coordinator, which is coordinating the inputs that move through me. The inputs that move through me, it's motion. It's actually air. It's the air quality that's moving through me. And that air quality, the movement gets metabolized. Just like I drink some coffee, I motion the coffee into my mouth. That's an input. I took the input of the coffee, decided I'm going to take that input based on a goal that I have. Maybe it's exercise. I drank the coffee. It moves through my body. It's metabolized. After being moved, it's metabolized. It's metabolized into what? Into structure, into kapha. It's once it's metabolized, now the coffee turns into my body. Just like the goal becomes the inputs, which is transported and converted into my structural being. Just like if I have a goal of mastery, my brain from the infinite waters of noon is going to come up with inputs for my structure. It's going to metabolize them. Maybe it does it symbolically because we use abstractions before we turn things into mathematical properties, into structure. And from that structure, what's going to happen? Then we have output. Then we have water. Once I have an output, there are going to be disturbances. How am I going to pick up on the disturbances? I'm going to have a sensor. I have senses, 5 senses, but also more sensitive senses. All my senses become more acute when I'm in a fast, for example. And so once I notice that there's a disturbance, I use my senses and I'm like, that wasn't the exact output that I wanted. Where am I going to put it? Back to the coordinator, back to the brain, and it's going to create new inputs. And that's a forever.
Wow. So you get to like refine the kind of like, yeah, that's pretty much what we do. Yeah, like we kind of the state we are, we try to refine it, and we just play with input and output.
And it's what every human being does.
Yeah, with as far as their knowledge get them to go, and like they're just
It's
like
intuitive. Let's say my aunt, she wants to lose weight. Okay, her output, the output that she wants is to lose weight. That's her dharma, right? That's her goal. Her goal is, okay, I want to lose weight. Is her output going to match the dharma? And if it doesn't match the dharma, her senses need to be sharp enough to know why it didn't match the dharma or the fact that it didn't match it, so she can re-coordinate inputs. And different people are different at metabolizing at different rates. Some of us change faster. We go through that cycle much faster, and we go through dramatic shifts and changes because we're processing, metabolizing, or restructuring faster to the natural world that's coming in through us.
And like if you stop putting input, you break the cycle.
Exactly.
At some point.
Exactly right. Well, here's the thing. I never stop until I die, but technically I never die inside of this context of being a system. I just turn into another structure, another output based on a dharma that I was never fully conscious of to begin with.
Yeah.
This form is again metabolized, let's say it goes into the dirt, but it goes into new life with the same dharma. Same dharma is gone into the subconscious of whatever it bleeds into, and again it comes up into some new form, new structure, and that structure again becomes what? A new output. And then the goal is going to be like, does this output match the goal? And it's going to keep recoordinating based on the senses that the earth has, the earth, the universe. There are natural senses available inside of the ether.
The eater. It's interesting, the eater. Like, yeah, like, you know, in pratyahara, when you lose your 5 senses, to me this is like the most close I get to like this void.
Yes.
And I never felt so much like relief, but still I was conscious of it.
Yes.
And to me that's lead to, whereas even that is like a play of consciousness.
Yes. That's beautiful. That's Atum in its simplest form, playing with darkness.
Wow.
That's the earliest step someone can get to.
Wow. Yeah, to me, I saw that as a glimpse, a wink of God, like just, well, it's possible, but that what it meant for me, the void meant death. And somehow it was a dead wish. Like I wanted to go into that void. But to go there, you have to learn how to live and to use this body and to interact and now I don't want to go into the void anymore. I don't mind like going there, going not there. It's just like, but even after that, like reading this trend, like all expression of the consciousness is like, I can see that. And now I just don't run after that. I don't know what to run after, except just to go into those systems and to refine, to discover, to let it go. Like at some point I found freedom in content, like in restriction, and like even to say like, okay, for this life I will explore this very topic or this very system. Like I have the tendency to maybe think that I will grasp the full depth of it and within 1 year or 2, but like the more I get is like maybe 50 years will be good. I don't know how. Like, yeah, it's like finding freedom and just like I will settle there. That's where I will specialize. So I will, like, when you get your Dharma, you know where your energy is going to be and what you have to focus on, I feel, most of the all. So it's nice to like knowing where to settle your mind and your energy and to canalize it. So that's what pretty much I do. But even that, like the Dharma thing is like, okay, I know what is my Dharma, but can I reject it? Like, can I just like never put an input and never like getting out, or will it hurts me in some way if I do that? Would I break out of a cycle? Because if you can get out of the cycle of life and death of that very cycle, can you at least get out of your cycle of Dharma? Like what's like this influence of pushing you? To me, it's very interesting topic.
Yeah, so I find that the answer is yes, and that actually helps Dharma.
What?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. Because this body is the thing that's acting out Dharma. The body is acting out Dharma, not the consciousness.
So I have to stop acting on my Dharma?
We do all the time before we go to sleep. To be in that total state of inertness is to go into the noon. We go into the noon every night. And we need that in order to come back to life with the sun. As the sun rises, our consciousness rises too. Atum rises. Atum rises from the depths of the underworld.
But I feel that you end up doing your Dharma, but without wanting it. Is it like the joke of it again?
Well, imagine someone who didn't sleep. How well would their structure be to carry out the Dharma? How strong would their boat be to go through the ocean if it didn't constantly get tune-ups? I'll be back 1 second. It's a pretty good analogy just now. Sometimes we have to go to come back.
That made the value of the presence, I feel too.
Yes, it does.
I will, because I had this temptation, this intuition about like not acting on my dharma. Like to me, I just like very pinpoint the kind of energy, never angelic energy, like that was pushing me to act. There was noble thing, and like it was nice to believe in, like to see myself under that perspective. But at some point, like, yeah, I'm curious to see if you can just break out of it and like being at peace. And
I break out of it all the time, and I am sometimes scared to talk about it, and you, well, not with you, but I'm sometimes scared to talk about it, especially with someone who cares about me deeply, because if they hear me talk about this state, they intuitively feel, they feel something is going against nature, and it's true. But sometimes we go against nature in order to lead nature, as nature would have us do. Being as human beings, that's what we're here for. We're here to lead nature, particularly, you know, I say this intuitively, particularly men. Men are here to lead nature. We naturally have, on the, you know, we understand this in psychology, men naturally have the disagreeableness. And why? Well, one, technically we're more expendable on a technical level, but that also means that we have a unique opportunity to do things and to take higher risks. It's also what testosterone does. What does all that really mean? It means we're good leaders because we can't create the future from a place of the past. So to be disagreeable, in essence, is to create a future that's never been created before. I'm here to destroy all memes. My life has never been lived before. Why am I here to replicate what's already been done? I'm here to do something that's never been done before. And I think that that's what certain, let's say, structures allow for me to do. Let's say the almond regimen has brought me more to being even more unique to who I am, not to who Moon is.
yeah, exactly.
These principles allow me to have more free will. And it's always been there, that potential, but it's been there 1%, 5%, 6%, not 10%, not 20%, not 30%. And the yogi gets to decide how much he wants to go against nature, how much he will go with nature. How much is he going to go with his dharma? Like some people feel the energy of the dharma pulling them forwards. That's great. Sometimes stopping the flow of the water is necessary to take a right turn and to come back. And sometimes that's much more important for creating future momentum. All martial artists know that.
Like it's funny, like me at some point I did like automatic writing, and was the way I can interpret it was like connecting with just a deeper awareness, and I read into symbology. It was like if I was writing at the third person, like I am Azrael, like stating out a name that I never knew of, and angel of death, angel of transformation. And that explained why I chose to go through this life with that unique perspective of grief and sadness, and why my life from a good part was very like changing every year, like so drastically, so deeply. And so in many ways it put me in perspective, like to see why like this kind of energy I had to go through this experience, what I chose to go through that. And that's explained why I was always surrounded by suicidal people, or like sad people, or people who have this lack of life, lack of like energy. And that made a lot of like, wow, okay, that's the role I play, that's the kind of energy I'm influencing. And whatever it means to be an angel, whatever it means to be like this, what to me is, but okay, but do I still have the free will to not act on that? Like,
That's so
anyway,
beautiful.
yeah.
You know what I think about that? And I love that you know, I was feeling it. And then the last words that you said brought something through. By the way, I'm hearing a high-pitched tone in my ear. Um, that's some interference of energies. That's okay.
I feel vibration in my face and like, oh, yeah.
Thank you. What I think about when we're talking about, let's say being a shaman, and this is essentially, in essence, what a shaman is. This is someone who understands that we are each a tree of life, and there are nodes inside of the trees, and sometimes there are blockages inside of those nodes. The shaman understands that there are roots that connect all of us, and there is also input that comes up from the bottom of the roots that we all share. We share an ancestry. Women are sometimes much more connected to this than men are. They're connected to the ancient past, to those roots. They come up, they remember the fact that they were burned as witches, that they were raped, that they've been harmed by men for so long. Those memories they come up this way. And when I prayed to my Kali, I think I mentioned to you, I got those visions, I got those impressions. And I realized, and even today I was realizing, wow, I have those as a man too. Like, I've done things inside of my ancestry. I feel those visions and those impressions. They're simply memory that's stored inside of this physical vessel from the roots. And as I clear out this vessel, it leaves more space, more room, more dhyana for those inputs to come in. And I'm constantly clearing not just my inputs, but brother, even in this conversation, we are sharing those roots, and we are sharing, and I'm clearing my vessel and feeling your energy, and clearing my vessel and feeling your energy, and clearing my vessel. So what am I? I'm a channel. I'm a faucet that's left open, that's left on. So my Dharma it's essentially the analogy of the mirror that you were talking about. The mirror is the tree, is the trunk of the tree, this sturdy, strong trunk of the tree, the wind shaking it, and the roots are getting stronger. Sometimes I get this image that my roots are breaking and cracking, and so on. And I'm like, where the hell is paradise? And I realize paradise is me choosing to stand straight. Feeling this is okay. And so when people are around me and I feel their anxieties and I feel their pains, and I'll get to a bit that you mentioned something valuable, I have to know my moment's limitation. This is discernment. Okay, I'm here to help people in that way, in that capacity. I walk around people, I influence people. I'm one of the volunteers that came to this planet, that came to this earth, and I chose to be one of the volunteers that, just by walking through a mall, I influence people's emotions simply by them seeing me, by them feeling me. They look over at me and suddenly everything has changed. Everything around me has changed.
You ripple.
I ripple, but I take in. We're all perfect. We're just carrying imperfect symptoms, imperfect dis-ease, imperfect vibrations inside of the body. So people pass by me, I'm picking it up. How do I handle that karma? Am I able to just move it through me fluidly? Because then it doesn't get locked up in my body. Or is it going to get locked up in my body and now we're both sick? You see? And someone might look at that and say, oh, you sound like you're abusing yourself. And I say, fuck off. This is my reality, so to speak. There's no way to not share energy. We just have to choose who we share it with and at what times and for what purpose. Well, let's say the purpose is to be my greatest, highest good. Why? Because I don't know what else to aim at, personally speaking. I don't know what else to aim at but the highest good. So what does that mean? It means that I need to have discernment as to if I have more in my body than I can handle right now, maybe I wouldn't have this call, because that would be irresponsible, because I may be putting more on you than you can handle right now. And you're going to maybe get it locked up in you. And so I have to have the discernment to know, or let's say, right now, maybe you're not feeling great and you have those things inside of your body. Now we're both having them. And so you see, now we're creating more karma, and we may be, let's say, really stimulating people who can bring up more rude energy. And maybe that's our tendency. We're used to that. So let's say we have a little bit of a blockage. We both have the blockage. And on top of that, we're also these shamanic sort of tendencies, our dharmas. We're trying to bring up more. And now we're both bringing up more, and it's getting more and more blocks. So you see, discernment is important, and knowing when to release, how to release, and knowing when to step away from those people for the sake of the greater good. And this is another one of those discerning things. It's okay, I need space from you right now, honey, or I need space from you right now, auntie, or I need space, or I'm going to go take that space because I'm going to become my true self. I'm going to remember who the fuck I am for a moment. And the way that I do that is to clear out what the fuck I'm not. And I put it that way because that's all it is. It's clearing out what I'm not.
Yeah, it's a very good point, because I feel when I'm with a girl or whatever, like it's create this mix of those two energy. And when I'm on my time alone, well, my energies become evident. Like, okay, this is where it's me there. But yeah, we're trying still. There's another thing apart.
And you probably feel that time with yourself in the same way that I might feel that time with ourselves, the time with myself that I spend at the park is necessary if I love this person. Because if I stay with this person and I force myself to do things that I don't want to do, and I do that long enough, I'm going to forget certain things. And if I forget certain things and I'm the leader, you can see, yes, exactly. If I'm the king and I don't check myself and everyone's just giving me this responsibility, it's a problem really quickly for everyone, for the whole kingdom, not just for me, for anything that's even somewhat associated to my field. It creates a ripple effect.
Yeah. And sometimes like I'm aware, like if there's a couple days that, wait a minute, like I'm here, I'm with this person right now, but if I was on my own, like would have been even there. I was like, no, okay, I'm losing control of my time, of my freedom, of my choice, of my action, just because I want to have fun, I want to help, I want to, like, many reason to lack structure and control. And sometimes it's good because yeah, I have to spend time with this person, and sometimes it's transformative in many ways. Sometimes it's just like sharing energy.
Do you feel like sometimes you're brought to that person, like just out of your dharma? Like it's not even maybe something you choose, but something about them feels right to you?
Okay, where I was talking about like this Azrael angel of death, whereas I was attracted by grief and sadness, but in a weird way, meaning my body react weirdly to this type of energy. I remember well when I was young, like my girlfriend will just cry in front of me and I will have a boner, like this, like sacral will open up. And to me, there was nothing inciting in any way. And even then when I like have this huge conversation, like just hearing the people, giving my ear, and I feel love. I feel this burst of energy within myself. Whereas a lot of people, it's overwhelming for them. They say, yeah, when I get too close of sad people, like I don't like that. Like they overwhelm me, and me, yeah, I would love to believe that, but it's not my experience. When I get close to them, it made me good. So that's where like Dharma with me again, I was like, is following again this good feeling.
And do I have the structure to hold it? If I can hold the sadness, what does it leave room for? Joy. The first always leaves room for the contrary. See, people who chase happiness, they find sadness. People who chase sadness, they find happiness. One way or another, we always find the other one.
And that's why now when I live like right now, new city, like new friends, like everything is new, and I feel the joy coming, and I'm just like, be aware of the five thieves, like be aware of like this high emotion, and I don't try to get overwhelmed by the joy or like this whatever feeling. I'm just trying to be calm and all that, and but at the same time, just a little bit there and there, like to experience them is fun, not to label that, to still be confused, but. Yeah, I feel my dharma is made me see people, connect with you. Sometimes I just like sit around someone that I don't know yet, and he start talking or like let his heart talk, and suddenly I get it. I say, okay, we're on this like again karmic path, and I don't know why I'm my dharma, and but it's truly powerful moment actually, and. Is it misleading? Is it like that? That's the dance of life. Like, yeah, it's nice. You're on your dharma. You're doing your work. It's so attract. Like, is it just part again of the illusion of life? Because to me, when I don't know, sometimes I just don't want to again engage in all those. Like, I love calm, just being there, but
Yeah,
I love acting too. But like taking life seriously somehow, and all those obligation and all those influences, I love not to act on them actually, and just observing, and anyway what have to happen will happen. I feel the dharma always do its job. So
those who play seriously play.
what's your mind? Have you like have insight on your dharma and like the way you're acting
Yeah.
on it?
Yeah, so I don't know what I'm about to say, but I will tell you the truth.
Thank you.
When I think about whatever Dharma is, it's the peripheral consciousness. And when I speak about this peripheral consciousness, what I'm speaking on is I have a subconscious. It seems to know things that I don't. I am the subconscious, but it is also separate from me. This subconscious feeds me small bits of information. It tells me you're on the right path or you're slow. Those are usually what I get. Those are usually my messages personally. And so I navigate my life hard on intuition, entirely practical on what this body is. So there's Dharma, but part of the Dharma says, stand up on your own legs, brother. That's what my Dharma tells me. Here's the truth. Part of that truth is you have to figure it out. I have to create my life, create my purpose. I have to be accepting of the fact that I forgot and don't remember everything. And that's part of it. That's part of the Dharma. Part of it is going through it, not fully aware of what I'm going through. So if I'm feeling the meaning and I'm in the conversation, it's not enough for me to feel, oh, this is the perfect place to be. No, what can I as an individual do in this perfect place? What's my role in this perfect place? How can I further orient my thoughts in this perfect place? It's like, okay, this call feels meaningful. Does that mean I should just shut off my mind and meditate? Or is there a role that I'm actually playing throughout this call? And what is that role? What am I orienting myself to? What Dharma and what secondary Dharma am I choosing, so to speak? Okay, there's a Dharma moving through me, but what secondary Dharma am I choosing as it's moving? Okay, I'm being moved, I'm being pulled. What are my decisions based on though? Are they based on the highest good? Okay, what are those highest goods based on? Well, right now I'm looking at you, and throughout this conversation, I'm wondering, what do you need? Like, what does he need to hear? And can I and it's coming through me. How should I speak the truth? And the only way I know how to do that is to eliminate as much activity as I can and just focus on you in a way that looks like me. So I generalize first, which is the general subconscious. I generalize first and I see you as God and I see you as brother. And as I'm acting, I'm seeing you as human. I'm talking to you as human. And both of those are meeting in this duality. It's like, okay, he's God. He's always going to be God. I'm God. I'm always going to be God. We're sharing this godhood. Simultaneously, we're sharing a human experience. And what does this human experience need? What inputs does this need? And can I be the God? Can God give me the information? Can I get this flow? And can I articulate it? You see, because my voice needs to be good enough at using it. My body has to be stable enough to code through this call. My eyes have to be strong enough, physically, structurally speaking, to look you in the eyes. Otherwise, they'll get tired. You may not feel the connection, and I'm already making a mistake. So it's constantly me updating as to how this human can support the higher Dharma. So my human's role is to become a structural being to hold God, to be the conduit. How good of a conduit can I be? I practice writing because I practice moments like this, moments where it's unexpected what wave is coming next. I practice exercise because this moment is unexpected. Someone could come through that door and beat me with a bat, or maybe I'll be sitting in this conversation, my lower back will be in pain, or there are different reasons. But one way or another, by having that back, I'm prepared for the unexpected. Why did I choose to do the deadlifts? Because they are more conducive for the most variety of patterns that are likely to enter my life. Life is unexpected. It is a material ocean that's coming through me. It's like, okay, but there are only 4 parts of any ship, only 4 parts of any room. Even if the room is a complete dome, there are always going to be 4 areas that someone could point to, and they can abstract that to 7 and abstract that to 9, but there's always going to be the same geometry. So can I structure this geometry in such a way that it's prepared for any of life's circumstances? That's the job of my human.
And I think it's doable.
Oh, it's my whole life. It's my whole life. I don't have a, as far as my conscious purpose, I don't have a conscious purpose outside of that, outside of preparing for the purpose to come through. The purpose is outside of my control. There's some purpose that's outside of my control. What's in my control is preparing for that purpose. Always preparing for that purpose to come through.
How nice is it to go about life? Like, it's almost a promise that things will happen.
And they are. They are happening. Right now is happening. It's never stopped happening. It's always been happening.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think this might be a good time to wrap up the call. How do you feel about that, brother?
I think you read my mind.
Wonderful. I appreciate you so much.
Me too, bro. Like, for real. It's just like, wow.
Hotep, brother. Namaste.
Hotep.